I never imagined that a simple request would change the direction of my life so completely. At that time, my world felt predictable, even boring in the safest way. I was 39 years old, married for 14 years, and living in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio where nothing dramatic ever seemed to happen. My name is Laura Mitchell, and this is the story of how emotional boundaries can blur long before anyone realizes they are crossing them. My husband, David, was a hard-working man. He owned a small construction business and spent most of his days juggling projects, deadlines, and employees. We had built our life slowly, brick by brick, just like the houses he worked on. From the outside, people often said we were a perfect couple. Inside our home, however, silence had slowly replaced conversation. We still cared for each other, but somewhere along the way, we stopped really listening. I worked as a private tutor, helping adults improve their communication skills for career growth. I loved my work because it gave me purpose beyond my marriage. Teaching made me feel seen and valued, something I didn't even realize I had been missing. That's when Ethan Parker entered my life. Ethan was 27, polite, respectful, and newly hired as a junior manager at a marketing firm. He contacted me after finding my profile online. His message was simple and professional. He said he needed help improving his confidence and communication skills for presentations and leadership meetings. Nothing about it felt unusual. When Ethan arrived for the first session, he carried a notebook and an awkward smile. He reminded me of someone still trying to find his place in the world. He wasn't flirtatious or overly friendly. He listened carefully and took notes as if every word mattered. That alone made me feel appreciated in a way I hadn't felt in years. Our sessions were held in my home office during the afternoons. David was usually still at work, and everything was completely appropriate. We discussed tone, body language, and how to express ideas clearly. Ethan worked hard, and I admired his dedication. Over time, our conversations slowly expanded beyond structured lessons. Ethan began sharing his fears about failing at work and disappointing his family. I responded as a teacher should, with encouragement and professional guidance. Or at least, that's what I told myself. One afternoon, after a particularly long session, Ethan hesitated before leaving. He looked down at his notebook, then back at me. "Laura," he said quietly, "you explain things in a way that makes people feel understood. I don't just want to learn how to speak better at work. I want to understand myself better." That sentence should have been my warning. I assured myself it was still harmless. After all, self-awareness was part of communication. I didn't realize that the shift had already begun, not in action, but in emotion. Ethan started requesting longer sessions. He said our talks helped him feel calmer and more focused. I noticed myself preparing more carefully on the days he came, choosing nicer clothes, fixing my hair even though no one else would see me. I told myself it was professionalism. Deep down, I knew it was more than that. At home, David and I spoke less and less. When I tried to talk about my day, he nodded while checking his phone. I stopped trying after a while. With Ethan, every sentence I spoke seemed to matter. One evening, David asked casually, "You've been busy lately?" "New students." I hesitated for a second before answering. "Just one. He needs extra help." That hesitation stayed with me long after the conversation ended. The moment everything truly changed happened during a session I'll never forget. Ethan was practicing a presentation, but he suddenly stopped and closed his notebook. "I didn't really ask you here today for that," he said. My heart tightened. "Then what did you want to work on?" He took a deep breath. "I want to learn how to stop feeling empty. And somehow, when I talk to you, that feeling goes away." Silence filled the room. He hadn't said anything inappropriate, but the weight of his words pressed heavily on my chest. For the first time, I saw clearly what was happening. He wasn't just learning communication. He was leaning on me emotionally in a way that crossed professional boundaries. And worse, I was letting him. I ended the session early that day. I told Ethan we needed to keep things strictly professional moving forward. He nodded, embarrassed, and apologized. He left quietly, and I sat alone in my office, staring at the door long after it closed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Guilt washed over me in waves. Nothing physical had happened, but I knew something sacred had been damaged. Emotional infidelity doesn't announce itself loudly. It sneaks in through attention, validation, and unspoken needs. The next morning, I made a decision that terrified me more than anything else. I told David the truth. Not every detail, but enough. I told him I had allowed someone else to become emotionally important to me. I told him I felt lonely in our marriage and didn't know how to say it before. David listened in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but broken. I never thought losing you would be so quiet, he said. Those words hurt more than any argument ever could. We didn't fix everything overnight. I ended my sessions with Ethan completely and referred him to another tutor. David and I began counseling together. Some days were painful. Other days gave us hope. We learned to speak again, not as roommates, but as partners. This story doesn't end with drama or scandal. It ends with accountability. I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from touch. Sometimes it comes from attention given to the wrong place. Sometimes it comes from silence at home and comfort elsewhere. And sometimes, the hardest lesson is realizing that what you expected to teach someone was nothing compared to what life was trying to teach you.